Hope everyone's doing all right. If anyone's here, I guess I should start out by saying. But, all right. I think I got everything out that I needed to. Okay, so yesterday we looked at a bunch of charts and a bunch of numbers. It was really boring. The stream sucked. Like, it was just a boring day yesterday, right? In terms of NASCAR. Well, today has been quite a different day. Today, on the stand, the witness stand, the testimony stand, the questionnaire stand, I don't know what to call it. We had a couple of big names, a few big names. I don't know, they're kind of important when it comes to this case. Steve Phelps, the now, what is he, the president? No. The commissioner of NASCAR, I would say he got some new title. We had Richard Childress, team owner of RCR, which those two names together, if you did not know. Steve Phelps said some things about Richard Childress and some texts that got exposed about a month ago. And then we had Jim France, the CEO, president, owner, part owner, I guess, in NASCAR, part of the France family. So, yeah, just really, really exciting stuff here. But, yeah, let's just get into it, shall we? Hold on. I'm looking something up real quick. All right, anyways. Okay. Let's get on with it. So, Adam Stern had a bunch of updates, and then we'll do the normal thing. We just go through some random tweets about the case. But Adam Stern had a lot of interesting ones today. So, let's start off with today. Jeffrey Kessler asked Steve Phelps if he meant he wanted to kill the SRX with the, quote, stick a knife in this trash series, unquote, message. Just getting straight into the dirty stuff. Remember, there was those texts. As I said, I guess this was the one that came out about a month ago when Steve Phelps, Steve O'Donnell, and a bunch of other NASCAR executives had some really, really spicy texts about NASCAR or about the SRX in regards to it being like NASCAR, or, you know, NASCAR was shook by the SRX. So just straight into it, straight into the dirty stuff, straight into the nasty. Phelps said he was frustrated that our owners were racing in a series that was using sponsors, colors, and livery that looked an awful lot like NASCAR. Okay. Sure. Why not? Let's do this for the second time in this court case. I'm just going to do a quick Google here. We did Chase Elliott the other day. Let's do Denny Hamlin today, since he's a part of this. So, over here, we have Denny Hamlin in the SRX. I'm going to pull up a picture. I'm going to... Well, that's a little blurry. We're not going to use that one. We're going to use this one. This one's less blurry. Okay? We're going to come over here. I'm going to show you this picture of Denny Hamlin's SRX car. You see it? You got it? Cool. Now, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to pull up a picture of Denny Hamlin's NASCAR car. Do I have any FedEx ones is the question. Probably not. I can check. Let me do a quick little scroll here. I do not. Okay, but still, I can do a quick Google. I can always do a quick Google on the phone. We're going to do side by side here. Denny Hamlin FedEx. What was this? 2023? 2024. 2024 FedEx. Yeah, there we go. Everyone, can you see? Can you see this? Okay, make it a little bigger. Do you see this? Do they look alike? Do those liveries look alike? I don't see it. Do the cars look alike? I don't see it. Look how far down this nose comes as opposed to this one. Oh, wait, I got the mouse on the wrong one. Oh, okay. Look how far the nose comes down on this one as opposed to this one. And then it's got a big old rear wing. This thing does not have a rear wing. The 11 is different. It's a little bit more similar. Like the Chase Elliott one was nowhere close, and they said it was close, right? Well, this one's not even close. The colors are completely different. I don't know where he was going with that one, but all right, Steve, sure. Why not? Sure. Okay, sure. Anyways, no, we want to get out of here, and we want to go to the next point. So, Steve Phelps said that NASCAR's legal department looked into SRX to see if it was violating any IP, intellectual property, or trademarks illegally, but the lawyer said this didn't cross a line, and NASCAR dropped its opposition at that point. What does that mean, opposition? Does that mean like they were going to sue the SRX, or like they were just going to publicly reprimand them? I don't know what that means fully, but yeah, sure. All right, cool. On to the next one. Steve Phelps said that part of the reason NASCAR was concerned about SRX racing was that NBC Sports executive producer Sam Flood had called up NASCAR after Chase Elliott competed in SRX and complained that SRX was causing confusion in the marketplace with racing fans. Was anyone here, 5 of you, was anyone here ever confused about the difference between SRX and NASCAR? Anyone? We have to do this for the second time. All right, guys, we're doing it again. This is so absurd. Chase Elliott. Oh, look, it's on my recently searched because we already had to do this. No, I did not. I hate the internet sometimes. And accept that. So here's Chase Elliott's SRX car. Same sponsor. Okay. We are going to pull this over here. So there's Chase Elliott's car. You see that? You see the 9. You see the Napa. You know, similarly sponsored. Well, let's go to his 2025 NASCAR Cup Series car. Also sponsored by Napa, I might add. And let's see where the confusion lies. Let's see where you could potentially have confusion in the marketplace about what series Chase Elliott is racing in. Just gonna make sure you can see it first, and there you go. Which one is which? I can't tell. I can't tell which is the SRX and which is the NASCAR. Can someone help me out, please? I'm very confused. I don't know. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Okay. Dude, I don't know. I don't know what that point was. I don't understand it, Steve Phelps. I'm sorry. You and the NBC producer dude or whoever that was. I don't see the argument there. They looked nothing alike. The fonts were completely different. The cars looked completely different. Mind blown. Anyways. Yes, this one got a lot of traction on the internet. The racing that the next-gen car has produced has caused a lot of uproar, of course. Well, Steve Phelps testified in court under oath. He said, in reference to the next-gen car being successful, he said, the racing is just better, so it has accomplished what I hoped it would accomplish. Obviously, there's some mixed reviews on the next-gen car. I think, for the most part, we can say that the intermediate tracks have been fantastic under the next-gen car. Vegas has massively improved. Kansas is like our best track right now. The Charlotte Oval is back and better than ever. Michigan's great. Texas has even had some pretty good races. Like, the intermediate tracks are pretty good on the next-gen car. Now, when we go to the short and road courses, those are tough. Some of them are good, solid. Some of them are awful. But then every once in a while, we get a really, really good race, and it's like, where did that come from, you know? So, yeah. It's been so random. It really has. But people had thoughts on that on the internet. And then another comment that stirred up a bunch of controversy. Steve Phelps on the next-gen car. I believe this is the safest car in all of motorsports. Matt Smith hates the next-gen car on iRacing. I thought you meant just in general. Yeah, so this one caused a bit of controversy as well because of Kurt Busch and, some other injuries that happened in the next-gen car. So essentially, I think there's a little bit more context behind this quote. When you see it like this, it's not pretty, but I think he's saying, I think we get to it later on. But anyways, yes, of course, this stirred a lot of things up. I believe this is the safest car in all of motorsports. Now, right now, today, yes, it is an extremely safe car. We have not had any injury since 2022. I believe 2022. The car has been safe. They have made the proper safety adjustments that have needed to be made after 2022. But the initial start, the initial track record of this car was not good at all. Alex Bowman got a concussion, was out for like 4 weeks. It ended Kurt Busch's career from a simple spin and back into the wall. Gave him a concussion, never recovered. Never was able to get back in a race car. Who else? Cody Ware broke his foot, his ankle or something at Texas. Someone else probably got a concussion at some point. I think Noah Gragson maybe? Someone got a concussion at some point outside of Bowman and Kurt Busch and then obviously the Cody Ware injury. So from that aspect, in 2022, that was not the prettiest year for NASCAR. Now, ultimately, I think Steve Phelps later makes the point in terms of preventing fatalities. That is accurate. That is true. NASCAR has not had a fatality since Dale Earnhardt in 2001. They have continued to have that track record. And at the same time, race cars are never going to be 100% safe. There's always the risk. There's always the high speeds and the hard crashes going from 180 to a stop in such a short time. There's going to be injuries that happen. Freak accidents happen. We even saw it in the Gen 6 car. Eric Almirola, Denny Hamlin had back injuries. Like, NASCAR is always going to try their best to put the safest possible car out there, but there's still going to be freak accidents that happen and someone gets hurt. Now, we don't want that, but it's the fact of the matter. With these high speeds, it's bound to happen. But yeah, it was a really ugly start to the next-gen car with the crashes, the concussions, the stiff rear ends. But NASCAR did change the car, to their credit, but it was just not when you see this out of context, not too pretty. Steve Phelps was asked by Jeffrey Kessler if he had always shown respect in his texts and emails about team owners such as Richard Childress. Back to the previous point. I believe what Phelps said, I think it was him. He said that Richard Childress needed to be taken out back and flogged. Yes. No, that's not great. But Phelps did say, by and large, the answer is yes, but he had sent one text about Childress that he is not proud of and had apologized for. So, yes. Obviously, once that text got out there, once that text got made public, Phelps had to do some damage control, go apologize to Richard Childress, even though Richard Childress didn't know this was happening until I'm sure Phelps called him and said, hey, man, I need to apologize for something. And Richard Childress is probably sitting there like, what do you need to apologize for? So I sent this text about you, and we got this lawsuit going on. It's not the prettiest text, so just brace yourself. It's about to be made public, so I imagine that phone call. when Phelps had to call Childress and tell him, hey, my bad, I sent a text to you that's about to be made public. I just said he needed to be taken out back and flogged, and that you're a stupid redneck. Like, it's not a big deal, but I just feel like I gotta apologize for it, right? Yeah, not a proud moment for Steve Phelps. As he said, not a proud moment. So Phelps was asked by Kessler, who is the team's attorney, if he knew who Kurt Busch was after Phelps had touted the safety of the next-gen car and if Busch had retired due to a concussion. And then this is the part, as I said, this is the context we were talking about earlier. Phelps acknowledged that, but noted the car was designed to prevent fatalities, plus they later increased the crumple zone. So as I said, NASCAR does have a really good track record at driver fatalities not happening. Like since Dale Earnhardt, there's not been a fatality. Yes, there have been injuries, as I said earlier. Freak accidents are going to happen. Things are going to happen that you're going 180, 190 miles an hour. You crash suddenly. Something breaks in the car. Like things happen that are out of your control. You can build as safe a car as possible. Freak accidents happen. But it is unfortunate how the next gen car started with so many head injuries, with the cars being so stiff. But NASCAR did adjust. NASCAR did make it better. The cars are much safer now. But, as I said, 2022 was a really bad year for NASCAR in terms of safety. But he is right about the fatalities. But, you know, I don't need to repeat myself anymore. And then this bomb was dropped during court. So Richard Childress Racing was potentially for sale partially. So Richard Childress owns 60% of the team. And someone else owns 40%, like some group, some hedge fund, something like that. So it says Richard Childress was made to admit that Richard Childress Racing has been in talks to sell an equity stake of the team, including part of his 60% stake. Childress said the potential buyer signed an NDA, so he was thrown off that NASCAR was aware of the talks. And then in the comments, or then after that, it says the prospective buyer of the equity stake in RCR had been a group that includes former driver Bobby Hillin Jr. Dude, this is just so insane. Like you've seen a lot of teams recently like sell off 10, 15% to a group. Like Joe Gibbs Racing, they sold off 20%. I don't remember the number, to the Harris Group or something, which I think is a group that owns a bunch of minority stakes in like the Philadelphia 76ers, Washington Commanders, hockey team that I can't think of at the moment. And in return, like Joe Gibbs got like a little bit of ownership in all those teams too in the exchange. And then also there's money being exchanged as well. So it's more of a financial thing if I had to guess. It's great for these big companies. It adds to their sports ownership portfolio. But then for Joe Gibbs, he gets some more financial backing, obviously. So that was really kind of a surprise because Richard Childress has always been, so proud of his team and, blue collar, all that. So to hear that he had been potentially selling was kind of a big deal, but not all of it. I think it was just part of his stake, which is 60%, and then the other people wanted out as well. In between the lanes, hello, welcome. Maybe it's the thumbnail. Is the thumbnail throwing everyone off? Is that why we got such low people here so far? But in between the lanes, hello, how are you doing? Matt Smith, if you're still here, hello. Okay, so now we're to the Jim France part. Okay, we'll get to some more stuff later, but it appears that the Jim France thing did not go too hot. Thank you, TK 10,005. Thank you. 60% owned by the founder, Richard Childress. 40% owned by Chartwell Investments. Reports indicate that Chartwell Investments, yes, that is true. Chartwell Investments, that is the ones who are trying to get out, sell their stake. And I think there was something about a third charter somewhere in there. Yeah, I saw the new paint schemes. Once we get into 2026, we will look at some paint schemes, do some paint scheme ratings, but we're still in 2025. And obviously this court case is such a big deal. We gotta look at this too. So France confirmed that his salary is around $3.5 million. Oh, sounds nice. And his side of the family owns 54% of France Enterprises, which is the holding company of NASCAR. Lisa France Kennedy's side owns 46%. Okay, interesting note. Cool. Kessler tried to get France to concede he was the key impediment to permanent charters, or that at least his executives said he was. He disagreed with Kessler's phrasing, but admitted that he said no to permanence. Kessler then asked, "No means no, correct, sir?" France responded, "Yes." The phrasing is a little weird there. But yeah, so there's been a lot of stories about Jim France being stubborn and hard-nosed, like it's my way and there's no other way. And when his mind is set on something, that there's no turning back. And permanent charters was a hard no for him, to the point that Heather Gibbs testified that they had to change the name of it because he would, like, permanent was a trigger word for him. When he heard permanent charters, it was just like, nope, I don't want to hear it. So they had to say evergreen charters, I think they called it. So apparently, from everything I've read about the Jim France testimony, it's really just kind of followed that. Like, we've seen evidence of O'Donnell, of Phelps, of other NASCAR executives being open to kind of leaning more towards the teams and helping the teams out in these different areas. No, they couldn't go all the way. They still had to look out for themselves and NASCAR, Jim France. But there were some areas they were willing to listen a little bit more, but whereas it seems like Jim France, not as willing. Team lawyers say that were by NASCAR's lawyer. Hold on a second. Having the document about Richard Childress possibly selling part of RCR, and said it may have been improperly shared due to it being under an NDA, and asked NASCAR to identify the source who gave it to them. Okay, that's just a kind of a side note. And then NASCAR lead external counsel Christopher Yates told Judge... I love how he added it. It's so funny. Told Judge Belt that a goal is still to complete the trial by the end of this week, and said NASCAR would try to cut down the list of witnesses that it intends to call from around a dozen to help expedite that. We could be done by Monday, I think. I think I read somewhere that... I think it's in when we go to the other tab. We'll see it. There's jury fatigue. Okay, so someone brought up... I got to go to the comments for this one. So it says that Christopher Yates said he recognizes that there's jury fatigue in this trial, and he said he thought a contributing factor was Jeffrey Kessler being allowed to ask repetitive questions. So yeah, obviously this court case has been going longer. Well, this is a really funny response. Maybe the witnesses should answer directly so Kessler doesn't have to repeat questions. Yeah, that was talked about early in the court case, that witnesses weren't answering questions directly, and so they were dancing around it, and so Kessler kept on having to ask the same question. Well, when we come over here, let's go to the top real quick. Where is it? Aha, here it is. There have been a few instances where Jim France and all of the NASCAR executives have responded, "I don't know, I don't recall," or something along those lines to answer questions. I don't know if it's a strategy. That's very funny phrasing, by the way. Or what, but it doesn't look great. So yeah, there was a bunch of... Let me see if I can get... Aha, here we go. 85 minutes of Jim France answering questions by Kessler were filled with the soft-spoken France giving many, many answers where he didn't know or didn't recall specifics of any meetings, financials, etc. He said he didn't want permanent charters nor the three-strike rules. What? The guy who's supposedly running the sport is answering a bunch of questions by answering, "I don't know"? It's a little bit concerning if you ask me. I guess it would be worse for him if he pleads the fifth, because then theoretically he's pleading the fifth so he doesn't self-incriminate. But just answering I don't know what the questions are. I don't know. That's my new favorite phrase. But many, many answers where he didn't know or didn't recall specifics. That is mind-boggling. let's go through some more of this stuff before we get back there. All right. Here we go. Okay. So here we go. More instances of higher-ups in NASCAR who run the sport saying, I don't know. Phelps had mostly said he did not know or remember how the exclusivity clauses in the track agreements came to be. Phelps said he believed some of the $400 million paid to the France family from 2021 to 2024 was used to pay taxes. Speaking of, I don't know how that works. Compensation package. Hello, Brendan from Down Under. We're talking about lawsuits. It's so exciting. Yeah. Legal stuff. I don't know anything about the law. NASCAR Commissioner Steve Phelps is on the witness stand. One of the first questions to him was regarding Phelps' salary. He makes $2.5 million base with up to $2.5 million in bonuses. Man, that would be nice. I will once again say. Much of the questions after this centered around the track sanctioning agreements and the 2016 charter agreement. Of course, that is a heavily discussed topic. NASCAR had a net income of $102 million in 2024, $536 million in 2023. Phelps said the difference was because of the sale of Auto Club Speedway. That makes sense. They got a ton of cash for that land. And Phelps somewhere in here, I don't remember if I liked the tweet, but Phelps somewhere in his testimony, under oath, I think he said that they're planning on doing Auto Club or the short track is still in the works. So if they don't, then perjury. No, just kidding. Oops, no. Auto Club. Here's the quote. My hope is that we will build a short track on the Auto Club Speedway property. Okay, so he said hope. He didn't say we will. He said hope. Hope. Oh my goodness. It's funny whenever you look up something on Twitter, your own tweets show up. Like I'm literally looking at the video that I tweeted. Sold for $544 million. I'm looking at one of my own thumbnails. Twitter search is whack. Anyways. Yeah, Brendan, it was funny. Anytime Michael Jordan comes in or out of court, someone's there with something funny to happen. We already talked about his salary. We already talked about this. Court is in a recess break. Here's Richard Childress walking into court. Dude, look at that. He is styled up. He's got the long winter coat. He's got a scarf. He had some support, by the way. You see Austin Dillon there. Ty Dillon was there as well. We're going to get to a funny tweet at some point in this. Okay, so here we go. Yesterday we talked about Furniture Row Racing, or a couple days ago. Furniture Row Racing, it was referenced that they shut down a year after winning a championship. How is that a viable business option or a really opportune business opportunity for a professional sports team? Well, it's not. To win a championship shut down a year later, but we talked about how the alliance, the Joe Gibbs Racing Alliance, the pricing shot up. Well, now we have some figures on that. So NASCAR's attorney, Christopher Yates, asked, why did Furniture Row go out of business? Steve Phelps said they spent upwards of $45 million to win the championship with their car and driver. My understanding is that in 2017, they spent $3 million on a Joe Gibbs Racing Technical Alliance, and then after winning the championship was charged $10 million. So that's more than triple the money they were charged right there. So obviously, that is a huge jump for that team, especially a Denver, Colorado-based team, a single-car team at the time. Well, I guess when they won the championship, they were a two-car team, but they eventually reduced back to a one-car team. A very small operation, like that was not ideal. So that's ultimately why they shut down. The Alliance price got jacked up, and they had to bail out. So it's a good counter-argument by NASCAR, I would say, actually. Steve Phelps has said, I don't remember and I don't recall to a lot of questions. Jeffrey Kessler eventually quips, Mr. Phelps, you'll get time with your counselor momentarily where I'm sure your memory will improve. So, yes, we've kind of been trying to track and gauge who's winning the lawsuit when you can't really predict it, I don't think, unless there's like hard evidence that's literally damning and, I don't know how else to say it. So, Today felt like it leaned towards the teams. We had Steve Phelps saying, I don't know, I don't recall a lot. We had Jim France saying, I don't know, I don't recall. Well, these are two of the top guys who run the entire organization. How do they not know? How do they not recall? Now, some of it's small. Like, if they ask Steve Phelps, hey, Steve, during this meeting on February 13th, 2018, it was during breakfast. What did you have catered in for the breakfast that day? I don't know. Like, he's not going to remember that. Like, that's fine. But if it's like, hey, how much money did NASCAR agree to pay the teams, or what percentage? And he doesn't know that. Now, I don't know if that's what he was asked, but you get my point. We're going to extremes here. We talked about that already. Just wrapped up with 45 minutes of testimony from Richard Childress. I'm not sure how to describe it in one tweet, but it was classic. He certainly spoke his mind about permanent charters and made his opinion about the state of the NASCAR business clear. It's fair. Both Phelps and Childress' testimony are complete. Childress got the most animated when being asked about a potential sale of the at least part of RCR to Bobby Hillin Jr., a potential deal that has fallen apart. Childress owns 60% of the team and said Chartwell Investments wants out, which thank you TK 10,005 for giving me that name. We already kind of went over this, but very funny. By the way, this is the final witness for the teams that the teams have called. Tomorrow we get into NASCAR's witnesses. We get into NASCAR's people who they want to call up. And theoretically, we could end this next Monday or Tuesday, according to some of the reports. All right. Regarding RCR profits, Richard Childress says all the other businesses are what boost RCR, that RCR can't exist by itself. Chris Yates pointed to the audited Hillin financial records to suggest otherwise, but they didn't get into the specifics of the financial as there were objections. Yeah, so that was kind of a wild thing that happened. Okay, here we go. Steve Phelps and Richard Childress have ended their testimonies. Childress expressed the same point of view as Heather Gibbs, that he felt he had no other option but to sign the charter agreement. Says that if he had the financial means to do it, he would not have signed. Obviously, Richard Childress Racing, a lot of these teams, they have not even side. This is their side business, I guess. They got to go make their money elsewhere. This is a business that has been losing money if you were a team owner. There's that quote from Jeff Gordon about how he's been losing money for 10 years, or Rick Hendrick's been losing money for 10 years. So a lot of the teams have testified that, hey, we've been losing money. We wanted to make money in this deal. We don't want to have to rely so heavily on our outside business. Rick Hendrick selling cars. Richard Childress has a bunch of other business ventures. Like they want NASCAR to be profitable for them. Phelps was asked during re-examination about his professed lifelong love and commitment to NASCAR. Jeffrey Kessler, did you apply to be the commissioner of the PGA? Steve Phelps, I was approached by a headhunter. I met him one time and he said I should throw my name into the ring. I said I can't leave this company and that he wouldn't take the paycheck. Kessler says NASCAR simply promoted him with a new title and no new responsibilities. As for the Childress text message that we are all thinking about, Jeffrey Kessler, Mr. Phelps, do you show all the owners respect? Do you show Richard Childress, who will testify today, respect? You sly dog. Phelps, there was a text message I sent that I'm not proud of, and I apologize to Mr. Childress in September. The text, I don't think, is properly evident, so they can't actually show the text in court. But it is mentioned. I don't know if he would have been allowed to do it, but could you imagine if Kessler pressed and said, what did you say in these text messages? I can't remember the wording. Can you tell me what you said in these text messages? They are not in the court. Richard Childress says teams were attempted. Okay, so here's some good info on the... No, Gronk, go away. Nobody loves you. Richard Childress says teams were attempting to negotiate for a better deal when Steve Phelps called to say they had to sign or they'd lose their charters. Childress said, "I would not have signed the charters if I financially didn't have to. We're a blue-collar organization, and we do what we've got to do." He uses that term a lot. Childress confirmed Richard Childress Racing is losing money with its NASCAR Cup Series program. Speaking about the permanent charters, Childress brings up the Carolina Cowboys, the PBR franchise that RCR and Austin Dillon own and operate, and says it wouldn't cost NASCAR anything to give teams that. Childress recalls a conversation with Jim France where he said NASCAR couldn't give permanent charters because they weren't sure where the sport would go in 7 years. When you hear that out of context, that doesn't sound great, but I guess it could be good. Like, hey, we don't know what it's going to be in 7 years. It could be 5 times bigger than it is right now. But that just doesn't make me feel confident if I'm in the position Richard Childress is in when he's saying, hey, we can't give you permanent charges because we don't know where we're going to be in 7 years. That's a little scary if I'm a NASCAR Cup Series owner. So another interesting note, though, is that Childress says they weren't even able to confer with their lawyers about whether to sign because they got the charter agreement so late in the day. So if I remember correctly, this was a Friday or Saturday deadline where they told them, like, by midnight you have to sign this. They sent it out at 6 p.m. Lawyers are off the clock. Like, lawyers are off with their families or whatever at that time, I think. Like, that's not during business hours. When you get something at 6 p.m. and they tell you you have to sign it or you don't have your charters, you can't scramble, call your lawyer and be like, hey, lawyer, can you look at this 100-page document? Yeah. Childress testifies that both his engine company, ECR Engines, and his military company are profitable, but says that money should be going into my pocket. I think that's all I got there. So, plaintiffs have finished grilling Jim France, and I don't think he's going to be able to skirt the claims of being a brick wall in negotiations as, quote, I'm not sure and I don't know were a constant theme of the testimony. We kind of already talked about this already. Yeah, it seems like he said, I don't know, I don't recall, I'm not sure a lot, which when you're running a whole sport, it's not a great thing. Like, things are going to slip through the cracks. You're not going to know every single thing, but you should know the big things. But what do I know about running anything? And then Jeff Gluck said, court is done for the day. I don't think I'm underselling it to say Jim France's testimony was shockingly bad so far. Just not good at all for NASCAR, in my opinion. As I said, we have been trying to gauge who is winning this court case. It's so hard, jury, blah, blah, blah. Well, it felt like today the teams had a good day. If we had the ESPN ticker of like who's got the better percent of winning, you know, like in the first quarter when this team was up 14-7, they had a 64% chance of winning. But then when the other team had 2 touchdowns unanswered, now they had a 60% chance of winning. You know, just seeing the chart go up and down and things like that. It seems like that chart would be going towards the teams right now after today, just from what we've read in the past however long we've been live. We already talked about that number. One of the things Phelps said in his testimony was that the reason the charter offer went out so late on September 6, 2024 was because Jim France had promised Roger Penske that he would talk to him before the email went out, and it took him a while for him to reach him. I don't know what that's about. I don't even know if that's weird. It seems weird. So I remember when this whole thing was going down and the teams were asking for more, there was at one point a report that NASCAR was like trying to divide and conquer and get some teams to sign, and then they'd go after other teams. They tried to do alternate deals, and like this team gets this deal, this team gets another deal based on whatever. So I just don't get it. Like, they waited till the absolute last minute to send out this deal just because Roger Penske didn't answer his phone? Like, what? I don't fully understand that part, I guess. It's a little weird. We already know that Jim France doesn't like permanent charters. Had to change the terms, blah, blah, blah. We already looked at that. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier. A little bit funny, not for good reasons. So Steve Phelps on the next-gen car. I believe this is the safest car in all of motorsports. Phelps got an audible/visible reaction from the 3 drivers in the audience as well as the 2311 team when, on cross-examination, that he said that other than some small hits on track, his safety expectations around the new car were met. Kessler circled around to the increase in concussions and then asked him if he knew who Kurt Busch was and had him confirm that Kurt Busch was for sale of the sport because of a concussion. He had to retire. Obviously this has been a big topic, especially early in the next-gen car. I feel like I'm repeating myself in this, but yeah, the fact that there were drivers in the courtroom. We know Austin Dillon was there, Ty Dillon was there, Denny Hamlin's there. I don't know if there were any other drivers. But I understand their frustration in that, I guess. When a guy's career ended, especially for Denny Hamlin, Kurt Busch, that was his first year at 2311. He had won a race. He had made it into the playoffs. He had been having a really good season. It seemed like he could potentially have another shot at a championship. Like Kurt Busch was having a really, really, really good first season with 2311, and then the concussion happens and it ends it all. Like, it's shocking. It was really, really shocking. And it as Phelps said, it was a small hit. Like, it was a pretty normal looking wreck that you see all the time, but because the rear ends were so stiff and the drivers took more of the blow, like, that's what gave Kurt Busch that concussion. And the drivers obviously being frustrated in that courtroom makes sense when they hear that and hear it's just a small hit and that safety is great. But when you had drivers getting their careers ended in the car you're talking about, yeah, not ideal. Once again, just more reiterance that Jim France on the stand was not too great today. Maybe when he has his lawyers asking questions, he'll do a little bit better. The Phelps testimony ended a tense exchange with Kessler, where Kessler asked about teams and Jim France. They should trust him to be a benevolent dictator. NASCAR attorneys objected, and it was sustained. No further questions. TKNZ said, Penske probably has more sway than most teams, given his standing in motorsport and as the owner of a different sport. Also was the back-to-back NASCAR champs at the time. That's actually a really fair point, TK. So Penske at the time of the negotiations, they had won the 2022-2023 championship. And as you said, Penske owns the IndyCar series. He owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which obviously, running another series, you need someone with that expertise and, someone to bounce ideas off potentially, or owning another racetrack, how the deals work, the TV deals, all that. And I mean, NASCAR knows how this stuff works, but in terms of just having someone else to give an opinion, I guess. So, that's actually a really good point, TK. Thank you for that. On permanent or evergreen charters, Phelps said not having them gives NASCAR more flexibility with not knowing future media deals or how the sport will evolve. But my personal opinion is a better mousetrap can be made for a better partnership. I don't know what that is. So yeah, the next media rights deal is up in 2031. We have a little bit of time before that, obviously, but hey. So then we go to this, and so this is the part where Phelps said he regretted sending that text message about Richard Childress. And then Phelps said he was mad with Richard Childress for what he felt was an unfair answer about potential benefits of media deal that was still being negotiated. Childress responded for who? Phelps. I was upset. Did I say some things I regret? I did. I don't know, like, all that was said in this conversation, but Richard Childress said something was unfair, or an answer was unfair about benefits of the media deal. And then Childress said for who, and Phelps's idea, or natural response was to turn around, go to a different contact, and say, "Man, Richard sucks. He's a stupid redneck who needs to be taken out back and flogged." Like, it's kind of crazy. We already looked at that. And for okay, here we go. We got a little bit more of a timeline here. Jim France is the last witness for 2311 in front row. NASCAR attorney said they hope to have their case done by Friday. So that means potential for closing arguments on Monday, which would mean theoretically that means it's over on Tuesday, right? They make their decision on Tuesday. We all go home. We all have our answer. So a week from today, we could have our answer. Does NASCAR get massively shifted, massively changed? They have to sell things off. They have to run the sport differently. Or will 2311 and front row not exist after next year? We could know in a week. That's kind of crazy to imagine. Cloudy 341 Blade. Hello. Hi. Yes, Chris Wright is now at BMR. That is accurate. He's going to be in the 81 next year. So here we go. So Jim France completed his initial examination from Jeffrey Kessler. By the end, Kessler subjected France to the same sequence where the questions were about what would happen if the charters weren't signed by the deadline. It looks like, so if we didn't get charters back, we wouldn't have charters. What would happen? If they weren't signed, they wouldn't be issued. Kessler said the teams would have their charters taken. France said NASCAR continued to negotiate for over a year, even after the email that issued all the options that included 32 charters, going back to open or going vertical. For much of his examination, France was shown emails about conversations and decisions, and the answer to practically each of them was, "I don't remember and I don't recall." Okay. Cool. Great. France says he doesn't remember Joe Gibbs pleading with him on September 6th to don't do this. Goes with the theme of Jim France constantly saying, "I don't know, I don't remember." France says he couldn't see himself telling coach, "If I only get 20 charters back, I get 20 charters back," but did he deny it? "I'm not sure I did." So that doesn't sound like a full-blown denial. Kessler read the entire Heather Gibbs letter to France to understand what allegedly made him so angry, as Steve O'Donnell articulated it in real time. France said none of it upset him, and he doesn't know why OD said he was swearing. All right, so we have a lot of conflicting things going on. Someone's right, someone's wrong, but we don't know who. As October of 2021 meeting where charter renewal strategy was first discussed was brought up by Kessler, but Jim wasn't sure if he was involved. Kessler read O'Donnell notes that suggested France was not in favor of a most favored nations clause, doing away with the 3 strikes clause, and France's family desire to own charters. Kessler says it sure seems like France was involved. Jim, it appears that way. Good job, Jim France. The note also suggested Jim said, "We are in a competition, we are going to win." Jim, I don't recall making those comments, dude. Oh my goodness, this guy can't stop shooting himself in the foot. Kessler said Jim didn't remember a lot during their deposition either. "I just don't remember, I'm sorry." All right. Kessler showed France emails from multiple team owners that also expressed to him how important permanent charters were. Jim France, that's what several of them wanted. Jeffrey Kessler, did they get permanent charters? Jim France, we did not do evergreen charters, no. Well, at least he got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He got 7 words out of him. Wow. And I thought this was an interesting note. For much of his examination, France was shown about conversations and decisions, and the answer to practically each of them was, "I don't remember and I don't recall." Good grief, if NASCAR has a case, they sure aren't presenting a good one. Fair point. My take on it, the Richard Childress thing. is that RC was probably a close second to Heather Gibbs in the most compelling witness category of NASCAR. But he also just held his own in the most Richard Childress way possible. For example, when Christopher Yates put up his prior declaration to have RC affirm things but took it down without addressing the last two sentences that specifically addressed permanent charters and long-term equity value, Richard Childress made him put it back up so he could read those two sentences and stress the importance of them. He also said that his declaration came to him having been written by the attorneys, but he personally changed it to add to those two specific sentences. So Richard Childress really wanted those 2 points. We already looked at all that. That's all I got for now. As I said, today was much more spicy. There was no big pauses today because the problem the other day, which was yesterday, by the way, it was one whole day ago. That problem was something shiny. There was nothing exciting. There was nothing of note. It was a bunch of numbers and documents and charts. Today we got some spice. We got Jim France not knowing anything. We got Steve Phelps talking about the safety of the car and apologizing for his text under oath. And then we got Richard Childress on the stand, which was really exciting. Once again, would have loved to see of him and, if Steve Phelps and Richard Childress crossed paths, like what happened? Like, did we have I posted a meme on Twitter of the Kill Bill sirens going off and stuff like that. That would have been really funny. To see that. I'm reading something. Hold on. I'm trying to see if there's anything else real quick. I don't see anything right now. Looks like we got everything. But no, it looks like once again we'll be going at 8:30 tomorrow through 5:30. That's all I have for now. Anyone else got anything exciting? Anyone? Born Again Briar, hello. We're talking about the lawsuit. We're almost done. Hey, In Between the Lanes. Yeah, I don't even remember what mine was. Probably music. I listen to some music every once in a while. But no, thank you. Thank you for the support. In Between the Lanes, you're always here, so thank you. And you're always asking about the paint schemes, and we talk about the paint schemes and the favorite paint schemes every week. In Between the Lanes, I know you're looking forward to 2026. Paint schemes. We'll do some paint scheme previews there. As for the rest of 2025, once this lawsuit's over, I'll figure it out. I have a couple of ideas. I do have a trick up my sleeve that I'm hoping works out. But in terms of video ideas, I got a couple creative things that I'm going to do. Can't guarantee you it's good, but I can promise you it's creative. It's a bit, one of them's a bit silly. And then we'll do what we did last year at the end of the month, probably December 27th or 28th. I will merge all the videos I didn't use from the track this year. I'll stuff it into this giant uncut version. It'll be like an hour, like last year's was like an hour and a half, 2 hours long of just unused footage from this season that I did not use. I'll post little clips throughout the month, honestly, in the members section or whatever. So yeah, you'll get a sneak peek of that if you're a member. And as for everything else, as I said, we'll have that hour and a half, 2 hour, however long. I don't even know if it's going to be that long. This year, you're going to get some bonus content with that as we did last year. What was last year's? But any other news that happens, obviously, once this lawsuit is over, obviously, we're going to have to talk about that. But we'll do some creative stuff. We'll do some random stuff. We'll look at some whatever. We'll do some random live streams. I got to get all the way back to last year. Thankfully, YouTube, it's like 4 videos at a time, so I can just fly through this. This will be really easy. Oh, here we go. It was 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 3 seconds long. Unused footage from the 2024 NASCAR season. I got some clips that are kind of funny. I got one that's like, it could have been bad, but it ended up, looking back at it now, it's kind of funny. So let's see if we got anything else to talk about. We are. I'm scrolling through Twitter looking for any other notes on the case, any other notes that we need to talk about. Talked about the next gen car and the injuries. We talked about I don't knows and I don't recall, I don't remember, whatever. We talked about the court timeline. We talked about Richard Childress. We talked about Steve Phelps. Yeah. Anyone else got anything exciting? Clash Tuesday picks? No. We're not doing any picks yet. We're not even into 2026 Born Again Briar. We're not quite there yet, so we're not doing any picks. We could pick football games, but we're not gonna pick racing. Yep. Nope. Saw that news on Michael Annette. Really sad. Really out of nowhere too, but really sad. All right. That's it. That's all I got. Well, no, not really. In between the lanes, sorry. That's all I got for tonight. So, college football, Notre Dame is weird. They're babies for not playing in a bowl. That's what I got there. All right, who's gonna win the championship? Probably Ohio State, Indiana, or Georgia. I could see Tech making a run at it, but it feels like there's a drop off after those 4. And I get that they're seeded 1 through 4, and that's a boring prediction. But when I go through the playoff teams and I look at the bracket, okay, I can't even get a bracket up here. Here we go. Here's the bracket. As I said, those 4 teams with a bye. So James Madison, sorry, no. Oregon could spice things up, but after what happened to them against Indiana the first time in Oregon, I don't know. Alabama are frauds. Oklahoma are frauds. They're so lucky they get a first-round game at home against the second biggest frauds. They're both frauds. They are both. Whoever wins that game is going to get throttled by Indiana. Tulane, no. Ole Miss, I could see them, spicing things up, the emotional without Kiffin thing. Miami, no. A&M 4 weeks ago, I would have said is in that contender category. But after that first half against South Carolina and how they played against Texas, I don't know about that. They should beat Miami, but Ohio State, I don't know if they can do that. If they beat Ohio State, then they're back, right in this thing. But yeah. So that's my thoughts. anyways, all right, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Well, before I guess I should give you a scheduling update. I'm out of town through Sunday, so I can't guarantee videos. If something massive breaks, then obviously I'll do it. I'll find a way to do an emergency video or whatever, but just know I will not be that active on here. I'll do my best. We'll still do the once a day poll. Make sure to go vote on the paint scheme polls. I might find a video or something to do, but then just through Sunday night, just don't expect anything on the channel unless it's big breaking news, like none of these live streams either. We'll probably go live next Monday. That's probably the next live stream we'll do unless something massively juicy breaks. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. And NASCAR got spicy. Finally, so much better than yesterday.